Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Boss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be with you today, March 10th of 2022, early in the morning to talk about something that's very important. Many of us have found or believe that we have survived. We've made it through the last 2 years. After 2 weeks to lower the curve, we've made it through the global pandemic, and now our lives can return to normal. But that's not the case. An old fear, a fear that we had long since forgotten about over a decade ago, now has returned to America and to the world, and will now be the new thing that we have to worry about, the new thing that is going to transform our lives and transform our nation. We will explain this, but first we want to mention that if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we welcome you and we thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all social media that the internet lords will allow to hear your voice, to hear what you have to say in your tweets, in your chats, in your phone calls, to tell us about the issues that are affecting the world. We do this because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to be able to speak, even if your government does not agree, even if the internet overlords do not agree. We want to hear your voice every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from anywhere in the world. And we hope that you will join us this Sunday. It's been 2 very difficult years. We've had to struggle together, being treated like maximum security prisoners, limited on our times to be able to spend with our family, with our friends, even outdoors, under great restrictions and restrictions of our freedoms and restrictions in our lives. But we made it. We made it past that. And the promise was, once we could do that, we could go back to normal. And in the space of just a week, every single bit of the political science reversed. And suddenly, we have come back to normalcy. Now, the pandemic still exists. The various variants of the pandemic still exist in the world and are still affecting people. The number of people who have been vaccinated, either by law or by choice, remains consistent. None of that has changed, although the political opinion has changed, and therefore the stance of many governments and the United States government and worldwide, that changed as well. But even with that, we can say, let's move forward. It's time to go back to normal. That's the promise we were made. That's why we made these sacrifices, and that's what we can look forward to. Except you can't, because it's too late, as we are now being told by the UN and the Science Insider, climate change, it's all over. It's been too late. We missed the window by decades. That's a pretty terrifying statement to be told. Adapt or die. You missed the window. It's too late. It's all over. Climate change is going to happen. So regardless of whether the Ukraine is able to defeat Russia, regardless of whether we were to change to green energy, no matter what we do, it's too late. You have already lost and you didn't even know you were in the fight. That's a pretty bleak outlook. And it's amazing that that outlook, that it's too late, it's all over, is coming out today, right after we finally finished with the last thing we were all terrified of as a nation and as a world. Suddenly, we are now being told that there is no return to normalcy because the world is going to end. It is now adapt or die. That is Patrick Verkugen, who is the CEO of the Center of Global Adaptation, as he spoke to Bloomberg News. If you remember, It was back in 2011 that we were told alternative energy plus shovel-ready jobs plus $814 billion of your taxpayer dollars, well, that would solve everything. And as we found out on August 31st of 2011, in fact, what that resulted in was bankruptcies. And in terms of the coal industry, and we quote, "While the current regulations put in place because of a supermajority of Democrats was not enough to enact cap and trade legislation, will ensure that 10% of America's energy disappears, not replaced, just unable to be created." You see, that's the result of green energy. That's the result of this move to transform the world from 2011. And you may remember that the Obama administration defended the green energy investments in Solyndra and 20 other different green energy, renewable energy companies. And in every single one of those cases, it failed. Part of the reason why it failed is that China is making the same product for less and doing so more quickly than in America, a situation that was known in 2009 when your taxpayer dollars were being taken to promote Solyndra and these green energy movements. And this conflicts with what was thought that, quote, across America and the world, Solyndra would be selling to a profit, even selling at all. But they didn't. They failed. And we knew about this even in March of 2010, even as we had then President Barack Obama running around telling America that there's going to be 1,000 new workers and this is going to be the new success and it's going to transform the nation and help us because climate change was going to destroy the world. That's what we kept being told. In fact, we saw that this has been an issue since 2008. And in 2015, we remembered the broad climate change agenda of President Obama and Democrats that they promised in their elections that electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Whatever the industry was, they will have to retrofit their operations. They will pass that money on to consumers. This is the positive. This is the game that you have. We're going to make business change. We're going to change the climate and the culture in America. And as we covered at that time in December of 2015, in fact, assuming that 100% cut to the CO2 emissions by the U.S., far greater than what the EPA is forcing on the nation without input from Congress, in addition to a 100% cut by the rest of the industrialized world, will still not hit the target reduction in global temperatures mandated by President Obama in his 14-minute usurping of the stage in Paris, according to the Heritage Report. This agrees with a 2014 Cato Institute prediction using the EPA's computer models that shows a minuscule reduction in 100 years from the Clean Air Act regulations. Further, as reported by in the Wall Street Journal on December 15th, researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology studied the INDCs that have been released so far and concluded that temperatures in 2100 will rise 3.7 degrees Celsius if they are followed to the letter. Then again, these are the same scientific models that predicted much higher temperatures than we've ever had. We keep getting promised a lot of things, and we keep being told to be terrified. In the 1960s, it was global famine. Then we had global cooling. Then we had global warming. Now we have climate change. Here's something to keep in mind. Throughout the last 60 years of the world, no matter what disaster, no matter how bad the prediction has been made by climate scientists, the progressive left wing of scientists, we keep seeing the same thing. none of it is true. None of it is proven correct. Every single scientific theory that has been presented about climate change, about global warming, about the threat to the planet, in every single case, not one prediction has ever come true. That is a fact. It is an undeniable fact that is irrefutable. We have to understand that every argument you have ever heard about climate change has no scientific proof. Lots of theories, a lot of consensus, a lot of feelings that say that it's correct, but there is not one theory that has ever been presented in the last 60 years that has ever been proven correct. No matter the fact that more politicians approve of it, no matter the fact that more money is being spent on it, there is nothing that has ever been proven correct. MIT admits it themselves. This is about now being told it's too late. The very same climate scientists that have told you that you have to be afraid, that you have to be terrified, that we must make changes, are the very same people who have never had a single scientific theory correct. Because back on January 22nd of 2019, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tells the world that the world is going to end in 12 years. Unless you do what we say, that you should be terrified, you should be afraid, you need to make a change in your life according to their terms because fear. And it was very clear what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, quote, and this is from Newsweek, quote, millennials and people you know, Gen Z, and all these folks that will come after us are looking up and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? This is the war. This is our World War II. It's interesting considering that we are now seeing many people claim that we're in the throes of World War III, that the Ukraine-Russia conflict is bringing us to a new level. But we will get to how that is being affected by climate change, something you may not have known. But we know that in February of 2019, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out with her Green New Deal, an idea that was supposed to change everything, that we were going to build trains to travel from New York to Honolulu, Hawaii, in the middle of the Pacific, over an entire ocean, and that we were going to change every single building in America to put on solar power plants, solar energy collectors. But the point was that we have to do this. And in fact, it failed because on March 9th, we saw that one of the Obama elites, this is Michael Schellenberger, and an Obama administration appointee, he even came out and said in 2019, this isn't real. That green energy, the idea, the goal, the effort will not help. It will not make the world better. And that's why on May 13th, right after after the claims being made by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Greta Thunberg and the progressive movement were being shot down over and over again because of a lack of evidence, because of a lack of proof, because their theories do not make sense, and because the ideas of things like the Green New Deal are absurd and impractical, inefficient, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out and said, well, how dare you be upset? How dare you hold her to her own words? This is besides the fact that people like then presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke, now currently running in Texas, the fake Hispanic Robert O'Rourke, has quoted her often about the world ending in 12 years from 2019. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, "This is a technique of the GOP to take dry humor and sarcasm literally and fact check it. Like the world ending in 12 years thing, you'd have to have the social intelligence of a sea sponge to think it's literal. But the GOP is basically Dwight from The Office, so who knows? It was the reason why she created the Green New Deal, because of the urgency and necessity of fixing the world. She was trumpeted as a champion along with Greta Thunberg. And it turns out she was making a joke. It had nothing to do with the fact that actual climate experts, individuals who had been hired by the Obama administration, respected individuals both on the left and in the scientific community, said, this is all bunk. This isn't real. And we talked about that because they were conflating feelings and facts for climate change. Something that we're seeing again right now as they tell us that the world is going to end. It's too late. You adapt or you die because the world is going to end. These proponents of climate change are inseparably dependent on feelings to support their views. This is because it is an indisputable fact that every scientific model for climate since the 1960s has failed to be proven correct. There has been no global famine, no global ice age, no flooding of coasts across the world. Therefore, it is as credible as the theories that the Earth was the center of the universe, popular and accepted as truth with no data to support it. We said that in September 24th of 2019. And we said that for a reason, because it's true. Because if that were the case, if it's because of human beings breathing, 7 billion people breathing carbon dioxide every day, that's more dangerous than anything that has been created by the human race if you pay attention to it. And of course, we did. And in discussing Planet of the Humans, a documentary created in part by Michael Moore, a member of the far, far left, they went through every one of the claims that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has made, all of these claims of the world ending and that we should be terrified. They went through this idea that the world is going to end and that it's too late, that we have such a short time frame. And we went through this from the left point of view and reviewed their documentary, Humans, Planet of the Humans. And that documentary, as it went through, debunked and agreed with individuals like Michael Schellenberger, who worked for the Obama administration, in telling us that green energy does not work, not just because of the lack of transmission lines, the power lines that we need for it, not just because of the lack of batteries to be able to store the energy so that it can be used consistently. It fails because the energy isn't even there in the first place. And that very often, and almost always, we see that for every one of these solar or wind or geothermal plants that are being created, we have to create other additional energy sources like wood and coal and oil and nuclear. And that nuclear is the best answer, and yet it is despised by the left for some unknown reason, even though it is the most efficient and least dangerous to our economy and our environment. It was also in 2020 that we began to go into our fear mode, that we were told we have to flatten the curve, that we had to give up our lives so that we could stop the pandemic that couldn't be stopped by sitting locked in your home, by not being able to go to work, by giving up your life. But during that same time, when everyone was distracted, no one was paying attention, that's when we first heard about this idea. Can we slow down or reverse global warming and climate change? Is it even possible? In fact, we were told, as this is covered by climate.gov, if all human emissions of heat-trapping gases were to stop today, Earth's temperature would continue to rise for a few decades as ocean currents bring excess heat stored from the deep ocean back to the surface. Once this excess heat radiated out to space, Earth's temperature would stabilize. As experts think, the additional warming from this, quote, hidden, end quote, heat are likely to exceed 0.9% Fahrenheit, 0.5% Celsius. With no further human influence, natural processes would begin to slowly remove the excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and the global temperatures would begin to gradually decline. So it's inevitable that we're going to see an increase, according to the scientists who have never gotten anything correct ever. Every single prediction they have made, every theory they have put out has failed. And now they're telling us that there is hidden heat in our oceans, and that even if we did everything, if we do everything that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, if we were to build a train going from New York to Honolulu, over the Pacific Ocean, if we were to convert every single building in America into a green energy power plant, if we were to do everything that we've been told, it still would result in the fact, and if we did it all tomorrow, the temperatures would still go higher, that we couldn't stop it, which is partially what we're being told now. It's too late. The climate will change and chaos is going to exist, and it's man-made. But here's this. Scientific American came out with their article October 27 of 2021, 1 year after being told that there's nothing we can do. This was October 29, 2020 that this was published. And here it is, 1 year later on October 27th, Scientific American states very clearly that we have 11 years, that we can make a difference, that it will change. So what's the answer? Is it impossible, or is it possible to make a change? Do we have 11 years left, or do we have 12 years, or going by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's countdown, 9 years left? There's a lot of conflicting information coming from the left about the ideas of the left on what's going to happen. And they all are saying different things. That if we do something tomorrow, if we change the world tomorrow, it's still too late. That it's been too late. That we still have 11 years to go. That we have 9 years to go. That we can make a change. Perhaps that's too lofty. Let's think of something completely different about this. How much does it cost? How much is this green energy effort going to cost us? We have said on this channel many times that it's over $115 trillion. We have said on this channel many times it is more money than all the money in the world. And people have looked at us and said, well, you're a small channel. How could you possibly know that? That's not correct.
$131 trillion between now and 2050 is one answer, according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, much more than previously estimated. For context, the world's GDP...
And there it is, folks. That's not us saying this. This is coming from the Wall Street Journal. This is coming from the World Bank. They're now finally starting to make the estimates that we have been making for a decade. That it's more money than the world could possibly put together. And to be able to do this would require the entire world to act in complete unison, doing nothing else. No world wars, no battles, no economic differences, everything, or even political differences, everything would have to be just on trying to fix the environment. And even then, we don't know that it would work. Well, we can still make a difference. And what you have to do is you have to buy an electric car. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said, well, you'll never have to worry about gas prices again. Just go out and buy an electric car. Isn't that interesting? According to Kelley Blue Book, the average price of a new electric vehicle as of October of 2021 was $55,676. By contrast, the average price of a new compact car was $25,240. By the way, the average American buys used cars, not new. Everyone can probably afford electric cars in the world that Pete Buttigieg lives in. According to Mercedes Schlapp, the White House communications official under President Trump, average Americans struggling with record gas prices, not so much. Hot Air senior editor Ed Morrissey wrote that instead of worrying about gas prices, Americans will have to worry about skyrocketing electricity prices under the heavy demand that electronic vehicles will create, and the rolling blackouts when supply can't meet demand in a regulated environment. In addition to the sticker price, AAA has estimated that owning a new compact electrical vehicle costs about $600 more per year than a gas-powered compact vehicle, despite the lower fuel and maintenance costs. But yet, the answer that we are hearing from the left is, well, you have to do it. Be afraid. It's too late. Adapt now or die. Make the changes, even though it's too late for the changes. And no matter what you do, it's going to end. The world is in danger. Even Elon Musk, the man who is going to benefit probably the most in the world for actually having people buy electric vehicles, is the one who is saying that's not the answer. He has come out and said, he hates to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Well, why would we want to do that? Because we can't make the change before. Here it is. On Tuesday, President Joe Biden banned U.S. imports of oil and gas from Russia and said European allies are working on strategies to reduce their dependence on Russian energy. The European Commission on Tuesday outlined its plan to make the region independent of Russian fossil fuels well before 2030. Elon Musk says, hopefully it's now extremely obvious that Europe should restart dormant nuclear power plant and increase power output of existing ones. There's your answer, nuclear energy. Let's go back to that. But of course, we know that in Germany, they shut down their nuclear power plants at the end of 2021, leaving them more dependent on Russian oil, not less. The thing to be afraid of today is not the the Ukraine and Russia. No, that's not the thing to be concerned about. The impact of that regional war, which could lead to 2 other regional wars, that's not something to be worried about. It's not about the lives that are being lost or the millions of refugees that are trying to escape from the fighting. No, according to John Kerry on March 9th, yesterday, the real problem is going to be climate change. He says, if you think immigration has been a problem in Europe from the Syrian war, or even from what we see now in the Ukraine as they are actively at war with Russia, he goes on to say, wait until you see 100 million people for whom the entire food production capacity has collapsed. You have to be afraid of global warming. Something, again, that has never been proven correct by any scientist or scientific theory in well over 60 years. But you have to be afraid of that and not the current imminent threat of a war happening right this second. John Kerry even he said this, that he wants Putin to focus on the climate as he commits war. Okay, folks, so we've gone through and we've detailed this And I know I went through this quickly, and we can go into greater detail. But the fact is, if you look at this over time, and we have consistently, we have heard that from scientists and from politicians from the far left that the world is going to end. And they keep telling you that you have to be terrified of this, that this is a guaranteed fact. Even though they cannot show you one scientific theory, they cannot show you one proven scientific, any evidence scientifically that confirms that this is going to happen. Every theory has failed for decades. And they are willing to sacrifice everything. Current wars, people who are refugees today, are secondary to their fear-mongering and to the changes to your life. Because this will change your life. There is no doubt. We aren't making new nuclear plants, which are the cleanest, environment-friendly things that we could possibly do for energy. No, they won't do that. They want to do solar. They want to do wind. They want to do geothermal. Or God forbid, they want to do more of the ethanol, which is destroying the Gulf of Mexico as we speak. And we have documented that many, many times. Why is that? I don't know. Other than it would cause hardship to the American people. It would cause hardship around the globe. It would cause millions to die, could potentially die from the lack of energy, which means a lack of food, a lack of heating, a lack of shelter. That is a fact. That is the consequence of a lack of energy. People die. Maybe that's why they're telling you have to be afraid, because their policies will begin to kill people, and you should be afraid of that. And if we learned anything at all from the last 2 years, the more that we are listening to the progressives tell us that we should be afraid, that we should be terrified, the more we should be watching as they take away our freedoms, our rights, and our voice, because it helps their agenda and gives them more power. You may think man-made global warming is the greatest risk to the world at this time. There is no evidence of that. It doesn't matter if you do think that or not. It's already too late. There's nothing you can do about it. The time to be able to do something was decades ago. Can we make a difference in the future? Sure. Is there any reason not to have a clean world? None. Let's clean the world. Let's use nuclear energy. The most efficient way to do so. You have to fear for your freedom, because it's too late. The progressives are coming after it. They know their secret sauce, and that is to go with fear. You have to be afraid. You have to be terrified. You have to be more afraid of the environment than bombs actively dropping on your head right now. That's what John Kerry wants you to believe. That you should be more afraid of the environment than actual bullets and bombs. I just don't agree with that. And it doesn't mean I would give up my freedoms for that track history of being wrong. And I don't think you should either. Can we improve the world? Absolutely. Should we? Sure. Should we give up our rights and freedoms to do so? I don't really think so, especially not when it means empowering a group of individuals who decidedly don't have your best interests in mind. Either way, it would be an interesting conversation, and I look forward to hearing your statements, your comments about how this is going to affect you, and what do you think should be done? Should we be focusing on solar and wind or nuclear power? What rights and freedoms are you willing to give up to help Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Democratic Socialists to move forward with their agenda? We look forward to hearing your answer. Thank you.